Guiding Emily premiered on Hallmark Channel on March 2nd. When this was first announced, I was a little confused because, according to the Hallmark app, this movie was released in 2023 and already had over 200 reviews. It turns out it was aired on the Hallmark Movies and Mysteries Network last year, so the premiere showing on March 2nd was when they were airing it on the main Hallmark channel. Okay, but then knowing that, I almost didn't watch it. Since it wasn't technically a new movie, I thought maybe I should take this opportunity to do a review of a movie of my own choice. You know, pick one of my favorites. But then my husband pointed out that I had already mentioned I'd be live posting on Twitter, so I decided I'd better stick to my word. And I am so glad that I did. I have so much to say about this one, so let's dive right in and talk about it. Guiding Emily stars Sarah Drew as Emily and Antonio Cupo as Matthew. But I also recognize several of the supporting cast members. Although you won't see his face, Eric McCormick does the voice of Garth, the adorable puppy he's training to be a guide dog. He is, of course, most famous for playing Will on Will and Grace. Eric McCormick, that is, not the dog. Peter Benson, whom I recognized from the Aurora Tea Garden Mysteries, plays Mark, who runs the Visionary Guide Dog Foundation for placing guide dogs with those in need. And then I spotted Lillian Doucette Roche. I hope I said her name right. She was recently in Paging Mr. Darcy as Eloise's younger sister. And then I personally didn't recognize Matty Finocchio, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention him because he played quite a role as Emily's good friend and co-worker, Drew. So where do I start with this one? It's a little tough because we already know from the synopsis that Emily's going to lose her sight. So when we first saw her living her very happy life training for rock climbing along with her loving, supportive fiancé, I got a knot in my stomach just knowing what was going to happen, but not knowing exactly when or how. Fortunately, Hallmark handled this extremely well. The movie actually opened with a scene of the most adorable little puppies who were about 8 weeks old, and Mark was selecting one of them from the litter to start a 2-year training program to be a guide dog for the blind.
I think it's gonna be me. This little guy, right here.
This is where we meet Garth. He doesn't talk out loud, but we can hear his thoughts with the help of Eric McCormick. At first I was worried this was going to be a little too campy for me, but no, I thought this was done very well. Cute, but not the least bit annoying.
I met Mark when I was 8 weeks and 2 days old.
While the main storyline was about Emily, simultaneously throughout this whole movie, we were also following the story of Garth growing up with his trainer Katie, learning how to be a guide dog. Scenes with him were interspersed all throughout the movie at the most appropriate times where we needed the mood to be lifted. In the next scene, we meet Emily and her fiancé Connor at a rock climbing gym. One little detail that I didn't notice the first time, but I caught it the second time I watched it, was Emily invited her friend Matthew to join her and Connor to get some donuts, and he didn't just decline. The camera showed us a glimpse of his reaction watching them leave together, and we saw how he lingered for just a moment. What happens next is also telling. Emily meets Garth for the first time at the donut shop. As it turns out, they're going to cross paths several more times over the next couple of years, only the humans don't really notice it, but Garth sure does.
That was the first time I saw Emily.
Apparently this all happened early in the morning on a Friday, because next Emily walks into a conference room with a box of donuts to share with all of her co-workers before they start their meeting. And I noticed another little detail in this scene the second time through. Okay, sometimes I still get a little distracted when I'm live posting during the movie. But Emily is sharing her plans to get away for the weekend with her fiancé, and they're not bringing any electronics. And apparently, everyone in her office is making bets on how long her fiancé will be able to make it before he pulls out his phone to check his messages.
Connor and I are going away for the weekend. Oh. No electronics.
It turns out the very next day, while she and Connor are enjoying their away time together, discussing their wedding plans, yeah, that's the day the accident happens. Now don't worry, I'm not going to show it here. Just know that it's literally just a fluke accident. She wakes up in the hospital with Connor and her mother in the room by her side, and her eyes are all covered up with bandages. Here the doctor explains that she's had surgery and she needs to keep the bandages on for about 2 to 3 weeks, and only time will tell if she'll be able to see again. She goes home, but it soon becomes apparent that as much as Connor does seem to want to help as much as he can, he's also frequently distracted by work. During the next couple of weeks, she leans more and more on her mother for support, and ultimately, she stays at her mother's house while she recovers. Keep in mind, so far, she's still holding out hope that once the bandages come off, she'll be able to see again. It was fascinating to watch her struggle to do everyday little things that we take for granted, like using a cell phone, putting on shoes, even finding something to eat or drink out of the fridge. What I particularly loved was learning myself that all of these things were still possible to do without eyesight. For example, she learns to text with speech-to-text technology. That is really hard to say. Over the next few weeks, she stays pretty isolated at her mother's house. She doesn't answer the phone or respond to any text messages, and her friends begin to worry. Even her coworker friend Drew, he shows up looking for her, and oh, the stern look he gives Connor when he tells him that Emily will be fine. After all, she's been missing for 3 weeks now.
I've watched a lot of unsolved mystery shows, Connor, and most of them start this way.
I was a little surprised when I looked at the clock 30 minutes into it and I realized that Emily and Connor were still together. I mean, yes, there were plenty of moments where Connor was distracted by something going on at work when he should have been helping Emily.
Hang on. Yeah, real quick.
But I was glad to see that he wasn't portrayed as a miserable boyfriend right from the beginning, like we've seen in so many other Hallmark movies. But in true Hallmark fashion, yes, they do ultimately break up, and yes, it is another hard, life-changing blow for Emily.
I cannot see your expression, so I need you to say actual words right now.
The defining moment is where she's back at the hospital after some delays and complications to finally have her bandages taken off. But her hope is dashed completely when she realizes that her eyesight is not coming back.
How about now? Nothing. I'm not saying anything.
This was such an emotional scene, just watching her go through this. Incidentally, Garth happens to be there at the hospital with his trainer too, and he's still drawn to Emily. It was really cute how he just kept popping up at all the key moments. You know, I just have to say, the casting in this movie, the talent, the chemistry among all of them was absolutely incredible. Everyone was so believable. I felt every high, every low, right along with them. And Sarah Drew, oh my goodness, I cannot imagine anyone better in this role. She really amazed me throughout the whole thing. And you know what? As a side note, she was live posting on Twitter at the same time I was Saturday night, and she responded directly to a couple of my posts. She described how she was shooting all of this blindfolded and that it was so disorienting and isolating too. Okay, so back to the movie. Once again, after the crushing blow to Emily about her eyesight not coming back, we were shown a scene with Garth feeling rather amused for having just destroyed his trainer's living room.
Katie, you're home. I had so much fun when you were out.
Looking as cute as ever, of course. The rest of the movie is all about her learning to adjust to a very different life. And while there were some challenging moments to be sure, such as the moment she asked Drew to turn in her resignation letter because she didn't think she could possibly ever return to work, at the same time, it wasn't dark and gloomy. Just when a scene was becoming particularly serious, they would throw in a comical scene with Garth to lighten the mood back up and remind us it's still okay to smile.
That's it. I'm going to be Emily's guide. I'm going to be the best dog ever.
As it turns out, Drew refuses to turn in her resignation letter, and in fact, he encourages her to call a nearby school for the blind to learn how to be more self-sufficient. I learned so much just watching what they showed her she could do. For example, I never would have thought that she could return to her old management job without her eyesight. And her friend Matthew was right by her side, encouraging her the entire time. She learns to read Braille, walk with a white cane, and eventually she even makes it back to the office. The reception she received literally gave me goosebumps.
Emily's not calling because she's right here.
What an amazing story this was. I even got teary-eyed when Garth graduated training and had to say goodbye to his trainer, Katie. She was also really wonderful throughout this whole movie, and the way Garth was depressed for a while after that. Seriously, everything about this movie was so well done. I even learned that the story was based off of a series of books, which I very much want to read now, written by an author named Barbara Hinsk, or Hinsky. I'm not quite sure how she says that. She's the same author who, incidentally, wrote The Christmas Club. Hallmark also made that into a movie, and it is delightful. And even though I haven't said it yet, for those who might still be wondering, yes, all works out in the end for everyone, including Emily, Matthew, and Garth, and they all get their happy ending. It just wouldn't be a Hallmark movie any other way. Last week I mentioned I try to be selective about giving a movie a perfect 5 out of 5, but I can't think of any reason not to give this one 5 out of 5. It was enlightening, it was inspiring, it was serious but fun. The casting couldn't have been better, including the dog. Okay, perhaps there is just one little thing that I can critique, but it doesn't change my rating any. I wish we got to know a little bit more about Matthew's character. Maybe the book goes into more detail about him? So what did you think? Was I a little over the top with this one, or did you love this one too? Please share your own thoughts about Guiding Emily in the comments below. I'm always interested in a good conversation, and not just with those who agree with me. Well, I think that wraps up my review this week. As always, thank you so much for watching this episode of Magical Movie Club. If you like this and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel and consider following us on Instagram at Magical Movie Club and on Twitter at Magical Movie Club with no U. You can find those links below in the description, as well as links to the preview and the movie page for Guiding Emily at Hallmark.com. We'll see you next week to chat more about our favorite magical movies. For example, she learns to text with speech-to-text technology. Let's try this again.